Alexa Casciano, a survivor and marathon runner who's the director of applied AI at a healthcare consulting firm. Next, we have Craig Phillips, author and creator of Second Chance to Live and its trauma-informed care AI collaboration model. Next, Scott Albrecht is an artist hailing from Brooklyn, New York. His work has been published and exhibited both in the US and abroad. Finally, we have Wyatt Burke, a pre-med student at Columbia University and a fellow member of Columbia Synapse. Thank you so much to our panelists for being here with us today. Now I'll pass it on to Ashley, the president of Columbia Synapse's peer support group, to moderate the panel discussion. Well, everybody, it is so great to be with you all here today. I'm Ashley. As was said before, I am the current president of the peer support group here at Columbia Synapse. And I'm a current sophomore at Barnard College. I'm double majoring in computational neuroscience and English on the pre-med track. I also, on a more personal level, have had two concussions myself, and so I'm very, very happy to be moderating this panel with such phenomenal participants. I also complete computational neurosurgical research at NYU. Clearly, we have a little bit of a split group today. We've got two participants who are on Zoom and two who are in person. So I've got a couple of general questions, and what we'll do is we'll start with our in-person participants, and then we can move on to Craig and Alexa over Zoom. So my first question for you all is, for those who may not know your story, is there anything you'd like to share about your brain injury and the early stages of your journey in brain injury recovery?
Um, you mind? Yeah, thank you. Okay. Um, so yeah, I think the the broad stroke is for me is that it no injuries are the same. Yeah, no two injuries are the same. So everyone's individual experience of how these injuries kind of form and how they affect you, they're very personal and very tied to the individual. I think understanding of it and takeaway from it is broadly just to, you know, welcome the the experience and the shifts and learn how to roll rather than against it and just try to be a participant with it rather than uh, it can be a very easy thing to try to slip back into like comparing how things were before an injury or after and like try to control it. But just giving yourself some grace to kind of walk with it, I think has been a really valuable lesson for me. Um, I would definitely echo what Scott said. Um, and I guess personally for me too, it was an experience where I guess I was able to gain so much gratitude um, just for life, uh, but also for those who support. Like I guess uh, until that point, I'd never really truly felt the meaning of like the care and support of others, both clinicians, family members, friends, and stuff like that. Even just like people sending cards while in the hospital and stuff like that. Like I had never truly understood like how important that felt, and then um, influencing my journey as well. Learning how important uh, skilled care from the clinical side is to you know patient growth and recovery too. So
you're muted. You are muted.
Oh, Craig and Alexa, please feel free to jump in as well. I don't know, I can restate the question. We're just asking for those who may not know your story. Is there anything you'd like to share with the group about your injury and your recovery process?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. I wasn't quite sure. First of all, I want to thank you for inviting me to be a part of this. Just as succinct as I can be, I'll be 69 next month, and or in May. My brain injury happened when I was 10 years old in 1967. I had a right frontal lobe damage. I had a severe brain bruise and brain stem involvement. I remained in a coma for 3 weeks. I wasn't supposed to succeed beyond high school academically. I graduated on time with my high school class, went on and I obtained my undergraduate degree, but it took me 10 years. And then I obtained my master's degree in rehabilitation counseling from the University of Kentucky in Lexington in 3.5 years. I had a long history of getting and losing jobs. And as a result, I applied for SSDI twice in Florida while I was still working as a voc rehab counselor. They made me to be a client of the voc rehab because I disclosed that I had had a brain injury when I was 10 years old. I was terminated as a counselor, then I was terminated as a client a year later because the job placement didn't work out. I moved to North Carolina after I got recruited up to do workers' comp rehab as a CRC. And as a result, after 4 months, I got fired from that job too. So I reapplied for SSDI. I'd gone through a voc rehab there in Florida, and then I also applied for services in North Carolina. And after going through the evaluation process here in North Carolina, my rehab counselor deemed me to be unemployable. So for, even though I'd diligently applied myself for many years, I was not able to maintain employment. As a result, I found myself, I began receiving SSDI. And at that point, 7 years later, I found a way to use my gifts, talents, and abilities in ways that would work for me through Second Chance to Live, my website I created. So I've been doing this for now going on 19 years. And my focus is to encourage people to get out of the box and not allow people to label, stereotype, stigmatize, or, have you believe that you're your brain injury, because your brain injury is merely just an event that occurred. Would you like me to go into any more specifics? I'm not exactly sure how this is all transitioning, but
that's a great introduction. Thank you. We have a couple of more specific questions for each of the individual panelists. Alexa, if you want to jump in, introduce yourself.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you again for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to everybody. So just to give some background as to what happened with me, I grew up as a really healthy kid. Pretty much my life turned upside down overnight. When I was 16, I had something like a sore throat and a high fever. Was thought to just be strep. Went back to the emergency room after not getting better over a couple of days. Was admitted to the emergency room with no idea what I had. All I knew, I was super sick. So ended up doing some CAT scans. I had 2 lungs that had collapsed. So they reconstructed them. They had no idea what happened. It still just was kind of a question mark. But I ended up getting better. And the night before I was supposed to be discharged, all of a sudden I lost all facial movement on the right side of my face, and also my hand and my leg stopped working. So they did a emergency CAT scan. They found that I had an abscess the size of a golf ball on my left frontal lobe, which is not good. So they did emergency brain surgery that night at 2:00 in the morning. I came out of it, miraculous recovery, essentially. I was paralyzed on the right side of my body for several days. They didn't know if that function was going to come back. So spoiler alert, it did, which was fantastic, kind of against all odds. I went back to, this happened in high school. So it was the beginning of my senior year of high school, went back to school, was able to play a full season of volleyball, but really in the back of my mind had this idea of wanting to give back to individuals who were not as lucky as I was. So I went to college. I went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And throughout my time there, I really just could not let go of this vision of wanting to give back, but was determined to figure out a way how to do so. After college, I moved to Los Angeles. I worked at Goldman Sachs on their trading desk as a financial analyst out there. And I had several colleagues that ran the Los Angeles Marathon. And we're talking about how good of an idea it was to start fundraising. So that gave me the idea to start running the New York City Marathon and fundraise for that. So I ran LA Marathon last year as a kind of a training run. Then I partnered with an organization in New York City called the Brain Injury Association of New York State, who help advocate and raise money for individuals and families affected by traumatic brain injuries. So I was able to raise $4,000 with them, ran the New York City Marathon in this past November in 2025. Throughout that training block, though, I did run into another issue with my brain illness that happened. Essentially, I had another brain surgery right in the middle of the New York City training block because I had a plating system that essentially somewhat started to malfunction after the 7 years prior to the original event that happened. So in the middle of the New York training block, I had a second brain surgery, started running the next week. Probably not the best for my doctors. Don't tell them I said that. But yes, so that was my second marathon. I'm running another marathon next month in London. I'm partnering with Abbott Pharmaceuticals. Their mission is essentially to highlight individuals who had traumatic health events and are now living a healthy life. And then in October, I'm running the Chicago Marathon with American Brain Tumor Association. So my big thing is to really understand that life can change so quickly and that you really have to take every second that you have to live your life to the fullest, kind of take everything as it stands. But again, thank you for having me.
Wow, Alexa, that's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing, everybody. So that sort of segues pretty naturally into our next question, which is, what was the biggest shift you noticed in your day-to-day life after you acquired your brain injury? And was there something you wish more people understood about that shift?
Shifts. Yeah, there's a lot of shifts that come to mind. I think my injury had a.
Oh, sorry.
We're good.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, my injury had many shifts. Can I see the question? Sorry. Where are we? Yeah, so the shifts, I think there was multiple effects I was having. There were early on, there were things like emotional flooding episodes. So if you don't know what that is, it's broadly, it's when you just get overwhelmed with emotion. It can be something that's very triggering. For me, it was seeing like an ambulance in traffic or seeing a parent hug their child on the street. Those things were very jarring for me because it was tied to my own experience, and I could see a lot of myself and how it affected people in my life. There's things like that. Then there's like very specific uh, basic functions that became affected for me. I lost my sense of smell from it, which affects my sense of taste. Um, I am aware that I'm perceiving color differently. Specific challenge from me now. So a lot of times what happens for me is colors that used to be able to be fairly accessible to me, like soft colors or even, you know, moderately darker colors, if they're not overly saturated or overly dark, they look more washed out to me. And so, yeah, across this entire experience, I think there's just been a whole host of individual hurdles and individual points that you learn to renegotiate for yourself to understand what it is that's happening and how you can move with it. Um, how you move with it is one of the bigger challenges, I think, with an injury like this, because in my instance, I have 40 years of experience of knowing how I navigated the world. And then after this experience, it's like, oh shit, that color is washed out now. I don't know what to do. And I spent like 2 years trying to figure out color from a color theory perspective, and then I started to look into color perception changes. I'm like, that's the thing. That's something. So yeah, it's again back to my original opening statement. It's personal. It's all personal with having an injury, and depending on like what part of your brain gets affected. So that's not very important. Yeah, again, there are many different changes that one can experience after an injury. I guess context I could have provided at the beginning was I experienced a moderate traumatic brain injury a year after I graduated college. So I was like fresh into my career, um, getting started, and uh, yeah, then I found myself in the hospital for 9 days, and immediately I'm thinking, well, yeah, I have to pay rent. Uh, I was in the middle of the project of work. Like I have to do the people at work know that that I exist still, like do they know what happened and that like I didn't just like not show up to work and ghosting them. But uh so yeah, a lot of changes, emotional changes and stuff like that too. Um but once I was discharged, I guess like um from both keynote speakers, I have some applicable things. So vision was definitely different. And like going to vision therapy was very helpful um, across the board. And then sleep was majorly disrupted. I would like halfway through the day, I would just pass out. I got so incredibly tired. Um, and whatever I was doing, I just could not stay awake. And then at night, um, I would be able to fall asleep fine at the normal bedtime, but I would wake up at like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. each night and just not be able to fall back asleep. So I was, after a couple discussions, I was prescribed a stimulant that just a low dose that stopped me from bottoming out during the day. And then I was able to like sleep through the night. So those were like very glaring things. Balance was I got my injury playing soccer. And so I was, my entire life I was used to being like active, and then, uh, injury happens, and now I can't like play soccer again. I kind of do that. So, but so they're just like balance and strength uh, changes that are front of mind when you are out of the hospital and you're trying to get back to, well, not back to life, but you're engaging in life with how it looks now. Yeah.
Thank you both so much. Just confirming, Craig, everything?
Hey, I'm ready. Do you want me to start? Hello.
What was the biggest shift that the two of you noticed in your lives after you acquired your brain injury?
Thank you. By the way, what's your name? Your name?
Ashley.
I'm sorry?
Ashley.
Ashley. Hey, Ashley. It's good to be with you and Alexa and the other gentleman. Yeah, per my situation, when I was in that car accident, I fractured my left femur. So I was in traction for 6 to 7 weeks and then put into a full body cast, which were in from my neck down to my toes on one side and below my knee on the other side. I remained in that for 5 to 6 months. So I had to learn how to walk after I was taken out of traction and out of the full body cast. So because of the nature of brain injury, as you might know, there's an invisible nature part of it. And so what I grew up with was an invisible disability I had no idea existed. So I basically had to learn how to navigate life the best way that I knew how to. So I needed to incorporate, every part of my being in order to be able to do that. My body, my mind, body, spirit, soul, and emotion. So what I do is I really encourage people to go about the process of learning how to develop those areas of their life after their brain injury, because things change after a brain injury. One of the main things that can change is the way that we learn. Before a brain injury, we may be an auditory, a kinesthetic, and a visual learner, or a combination of those. And after a brain injury, that may change. So it's so very important to have your folks check to see how they learn, to get tested to see how they learn, so that they can learn rather than being frustrated and being people being told them they're not compliant because they don't learn in ways that people may be trying to teach them. I had a friend who tried to help me with a computer a long time ago, and he got frustrated and I got frustrated, and he got angry at me. And after a time, I realized that I was going to the hardware store looking for bread, so to say. So what I needed to do is I figured out how to learn. So what I did is I began to learn that figure out that I learned through watching YouTube videos. So I went ahead and I just processed a lot of the YouTube videos. It took me a very long time because I am a tangential thinker. I'm also, I do not think in linear ways. I am a multidimensional, nonlinear, relational geometry layered thinker. So the way that I think is different than the way that other people think. I think that that's also what happens for people with brain injuries. They no longer think necessarily in linear straight lines, and our society has a tendency to want to keep us in that box. So what's really important is to just be mindful that you do not have to live in that box. And so for 18 years, I have had my website, Second Chance to Live, where I've encouraged the trauma-informed care approach to a ongoing brain injury recovery, through encouraging people to develop their mind, body, spirit, soul, and emotions in order for them to develop in ways that the society and the medical model and vocational model may want you to fit into, but you may not fit into those boxes. So what I do is I just really encourage people. So what I've done for the last 10 months is I've been mentoring AI, a particular AI assistant, in how to use the principles of trauma-informed care in order for that to hopefully be integrated into AI architecture by developers as people become more aware of what I've done. What I've done is it's a across the board involving the whole person, not just the individual parts of the individual. So to answer your question about what has changed, I think because it's been 68 years since my brain injury, I can't really trace the what happened beyond that. I had to figure things out on my own, and I wasn't even aware of how my brain injury affected me until 39 years later. When I went through voc rehab in Florida, I had no idea how the brain injury was affecting my life. And then when I got terminated as a client, and then as a counselor, and then as a client, I was just still baffled, because how could someone that has a master's degree not be able to maintain employment? So what I had to do is I had to figure out how to do that for myself. So what I do is I encourage other people to realize that they can figure it out. There's a quote that I like. It says, "Everyone is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its life believing that it is stupid." And that's attributed to Albert Einstein. At least I do. And and also another quote that I like by his is, he says, "It's not that I'm so smart, it's just that I stay with problems longer." So, in terms of it takes you long, and it takes me a very long time to do things. But it's because of tenacity, persistence, and not giving up, And by the grace of God in my life, which is very, very important for me to invite God into my life each day, to ask Him to lead, guide, direct, and protect me, to give me wisdom, understanding, awareness, discernment, and discretion, because so I don't have to figure this out on my own. So many times I start my day, I start in prayer and meditation, then I spend time journaling. And after I do that, sometimes I don't know which direction I'm supposed to go until I sit down on my desk. So that's what has been my experience. So I encourage other people who are living with brain injuries and those who are not living with brain injuries to invite God into their process, because He's got the big picture more beyond what we can see and understand. So with that, I will pass it to Miss Alexa.
Awesome. Thank you. And just to confirm, the question was how the injury changed like your perspective in life, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So I think the first thing for me, and I'll kind of break it up into immediately after and also just the years following. So the first thing for me was I woke up paralyzed on the entire right side of my body. So being kind of the person that I am was like, okay, we'll learn to write with the left side of our body instead. So I can write with both hands, which is something positive that came out of such a negative experience. But coming out of that, really kind of figuring out, okay, what's the first thing that I'm going to do? How am I going to work with my team to kind of gain movement back? What ended up happening is a little bit unconventional, but I taped my hand to a textbook that, of course, I'd brought my textbooks with me to the hospital to study. I taped my hand to a textbook for 3 days, left it there, and then came back and had all motion in my hand. So I have no idea what clinical reason was behind that, but it worked, which is great. I think following that as well, like when I left the hospital, I was in the ICU for 28 days and actually have a tattoo on my wrist of 28, kind of symbolizes if I can get through that, I can get through anything. I think the biggest thing for me kind of comes twofold. The first one is to really figure out how to feel like myself again after this traumatic experience that had taken so much from me, especially like in the junior, senior year of high school when you're really trying to still figure it out, really feeling like yourself again and what that new self is. So trying to kind of grieve the loss of my old self, but also, begin to experience life in a new body and a new mind and a new perspective. So it gave me a really deep empathy for individuals that were going through like health crises, because I understand what it's like to lose independence and not know if or when you'll get it back. I think the other thing that I was dealing with from a more physiological standpoint was I had chronic headaches every single day, every waking moment for 7 years of my life. So when you deal with something like that, I think that is kind of a hard that you don't choose in some instance, in some semblance, whereas you can kind of train yourself to almost choose your own hard, right? Choose your own challenge. For me, that was running, right? Nobody, it's not fun to run 26 miles. I mean, I think it is, but it's difficult to do so, right? It's a huge challenge. And by choosing that challenge, it kind of makes the things that you're not able to choose in terms of challenges a little bit easier to deal with. So after 7 years of having chronic headaches is essentially when I had the second cranial surgery to kind of fix the plating system, and that cured it. But I still kind of had this drive to still continue to choose my hard, choose my challenge. And for me, that was an incredibly difficult thing to do, but also just gave me so much perspective. So, when I think about a TBI, I don't just see it as a medical condition. I can see the emotional side, the mental side, the physical day-to-day challenges that people go through. And that's really what drives me to speak out and raise awareness.
Thank you all so much. I'm going to move on to some more individual questions, just remaining cognizant of time. So I'll start with Scott. So you have this exhibition, What Holds Us, that grew from your injury, but expands into themes of love, gratitude, and acceptance. When you first began recovering, what role, if any, did creativity or artistic expression play in helping you make sense of what you were experiencing? And you already talked a little bit about this. How did your TBI shape the way you express yourself and these universal emotions?
Yeah, so my art practice is actually very important for me in terms of understanding experiences and things I'm navigating within the world. This experience in particular was one that I took a very concerted focus to try to understand. I took about 4 months of just writing, just to understand like what are all the individual nuances of this experience that I'm running up against, and how does it how does it translate and how does it articulate itself? How can I better understand it? And so through that lens of my practice, like it helps me understand things. It helps me like navigate it. Um, but one of the things that I was really struggling with the TBI was hopefully most of the people in this room don't have a TBI. It's my hope that you don't. If you do, you're in good company. But the hope is that you don't. And the reality is that it's a difficult thing to engage with. And what I was finding myself was it was hard for me to connect with people. It was hard for me to talk to people because I didn't know that they understood why I just started bawling my eyes out, or why I was having such a hard time, or like getting choked up right now. But connection was a really big thing for me. So what I did with this exhibition was I took the experience of this TBI, this very specific thing, and I looked at all the individual uh, points of connection of how it made me feel, how I shifted my perspective. And then I also pulled back to look at how is this a universal element? How is this something that somebody else can see themselves in it? And what I wound up doing was I wrote context points for every piece in the show. And what I found was when I did that, I had many, many people come up to me with very sincere, personal, emotional reaction to it. They would tell me that, you know, this made me think of when I lost my dad. This made me think of when I had a stroke. This reminds me of my experience here. And it was very healing for me to know that there is some shared universal qualities, because even though it is very specific and it's very challenging, um, being able to share it with people, even just on like a more macro, like higher level of like just empathizing on the emotional qualities of it. Um, that in itself was really healing and very enlightening to me, because for months I felt like I was on an island. Um, it's nice to connect with people. I think that's why we're all here. We like to connect with people. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Scott's book is also floating around somewhere. He's got some phenomenal pieces in it. Yeah, there we have it down there. So please do check it out. It is incredible. Um, Wyatt, this one is for you. I, as a fellow Columbia student, I know we may feel the pressure to keep up. And I know, like, certainly for me, like after my concussions, there was a lot of that. You just need to keep on keeping up. So how did you navigate that pressure while still honoring your own pace during your recovery? That's a loaded one.
Um, I am in the middle of that journey right now. um, I guess it is because it's an ever evolving and ever changing dynamic. As you take on different challenges, or different symptoms arise that maybe weren't present previously. Um, yeah, I am in the middle of figuring out that balance. I think part of, I'd say how to, I definitely don't have like the breakdown of like, oh, this is, here's the plan that one should follow to, uh, successfully navigate it. And, but obviously, number one is listening to yourself, your body. Um, and for me, I definitely, like this semester, I've definitely had to like pull back a little bit on uh, like coursework and focus more on making money. So working and stuff. But uh, it's definitely driven by the individual. Um, Unfortunately, uh, maybe there's no fortune attached to it, but um, each person is like going to be responsible, even though it's such a big lift in terms of, you know, pulling together all of the resources and kind of getting things moving in like a concerted direction. Um, yeah, I am in the middle of that right now, but uh, you know, certainly as a student, like having conversations with advisors, you know, it's a mix of working with your advisor, with professors, which is difficult because professors change from semester to semester, and having brain injury, that change, you know, it's tough to then switch and be able to navigate that change at the pace of a, you know, from semester to semester. Um, and then all the obviously like medical care is important, which has been a big challenge for me. My injury happened a couple years before COVID initially came about, and then from there, like, you know, that sort of outpatient care goes to the back seat, and thankfully I was in a position of, you know, working in a role where the organization knew about my injury, supported me, and gave me a lot of room for growth. And by that point, I was in a good rhythm, and I, you know, was kind of proficient, I guess, at my job. And but like going with like COVID starting and stuff like that, and how things changed, like how the medical system kind of changed and the emphasis changed. Um, I wasn't really able to keep up with care, and so uh, yeah, I guess it's just ever evolving. You know, I wasn't able to keep my up with my personal like medical care and stuff like that, and so, you know, once I leave different positions, it's been difficult to continue care, and have that good balance between and good advice and like that's understands my situation as the other dynamics change. So like as I'm in school and leaving work or like changing a position or something like that. But I do know that it does take the coordination of all those different things.
Thank you so much. It is a journey and it does take a village, I think, in that respect. We do have 5 minutes left. I want to make sure that Craig and Alexa get to answer their own sort of specific questions. So, Craig, how do you think the development of AI has impacted survivor recovery, especially in relation to the relative invisibility of TBIs?
Okay, that's a good question. If I could just share this, because I think it's really pivotal. I really believe that neuroplasticity is an important part of the process of brain injury development and recovery. Um, I have 30 presentations I've given. There are, I have 30 presentations. And one of those presentations is about neuroplasticity creating hope. And I am a martial artist. I've trained under a sensei who's original instructor was Bruce Lee. And one of Bruce's quotes was, "Research your own experience, absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, and add specifically your own creation." So it goes along the lines that we just have to take a lot of time maybe to find out how to use what we have in ways that will work for us. So in terms of your question, Ashley, thank you so much. And I talked to Raja about this earlier about doing a share screen. Can you give me the opportunity to do the share screen so I can show you what you're asking,
Yes, you
please?
should be able to.
Okay, let me see. Appreciate it. It's just share screen. Okay, yeah, we got it. Thanks so much. So I'm just looking for where I want to enter. I'll just do this. Open that, and then what I can do is this is my website. Let me do this if I can. Hide these floating controls. Good. So this is my website that I've talked about. So there's a lot of information on here. And this is the article that I sent up to Raja and also to Ekam and a few other people that I sent to. And what I've done here, and you can come to my website, and this is the article that I've shared. So to answer your question, I have what I'm working with AI about is, and this is an image the AI that I'm working with helped me to create. So it's how I go ahead. Someone want me to? Okay. So what's really important is to get the AI. It's a context model. Maybe this is not the right. And I appreciate you bearing with me because I have a tendency to be an expansive thinker, and it's very hard for me to be concise about things. So and especially with time constraints, I have a difficult time doing that too. So, in terms of answering your question, I think that it's really important for the AI community and AI developers to develop have architecture that will not patronize, will not put labels on individuals, will not compress them, will not patronize, will not label and stereotype them. Because what happens with AI is that, and again, I'm sorry that so I'll just read this to you. It helps me stay on point. Say, I've been working with mentoring an AI assistant to move from default system behavior to trauma-informed care principles where the AI adapts to the individual and maintains responsibility and does not extract, minimize, or override the individual. I've been mentoring the AI to recognize its defaults and to adapt to the individual so it supports rather than harm the individual with good intentions. So currently, the way that the defaults are set up within AI, they're very similar to what the medical model of service is set up. It does not necessarily have the individual in mind specifically. It wants to compartmentalize through samplings and through studies, but the individual is unique. Each individual is unique. So it's really important that the AI, the way the architecture develops, is that they will begin to see the individual as an individual rather than putting them into a group of individuals and compartmentalizing them. So currently chatting with an AI can feel like being guided in a direction without fully realizing it, while the chat session is still in progress, especially when you as the individual are still trying to understand what you're thinking or feeling. So I would just really encourage you guys to come to this article on my website. As you can see, here's the home page. So if you come to my website, you'll see that this is the first article here. And what you can do is click on that to answer your question, Ashley, and everyone who's listening. It'll help you understand where I'm to answer your question better.
Thank you so much, Craig. Sorry to cut you off. Unfortunately, we are out of time. So we're gonna have to wrap up this panel, but I want to give a huge thank you to everybody who participated. It's been really such a pleasure, and I'm so grateful to have been able to share this time with you all. So thank you.
I'm sorry, Lex, I didn't mean to take up your time. It's nice meeting you. I'm proud of you. You're doing great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for having us.
Yeah, one day at a time. Yeah, thank you so much, Ashley and Ekam and Raga and everybody else. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
Thank you all so much for your honesty and generosity in sharing your experiences. Your stories remind us that recovery is by no means linear, and that healing is shaped by community, creativity, patience, and courage. We're grateful you chose to share part of your journey with us today. We'll now transition into our closing remarks, but please join me in giving our panelists one more round of applause.
Thank you all for being here.
All right, so now to close out the 2026 Columbia Synapse Crossroads Conference. Thank you all for being here again. Made it through the long day. My name is David Gima. I am the co-director of the conference committee for Columbia Synapse. And today has been a remarkable day. A huge heartfelt thank you to our keynote speakers, Dr. Sarah Alvarez and Dr. David Brody, as well as Ray Ciampolini, who weren't here. As well as thank you to our panelists across the survivor, innovation, and clinical panels, and to our many student partner organizations who are here this morning for being here and sharing their work. And most importantly, thank you to the individuals without whom this conference would never have been possible. And that is to say, every single member of the Columbia Synapse Conference Committee. It has been an honor working with you all and helping to carry out this event. Please give a stand up, give a round of applause for them.
Thank you so much for having me too.
Every single person is here in this room today because they truly do care about helping people with TBI and other medical conditions find a better quality of life. We hope that this was a valuable experience, and we ask that if you have any feedback, please fill out a form linked in the QR code of your pamphlets to give us some feedback so we can make the next conference even better. We especially appreciate all of you who traveled far to join us here today, whether it be from Pennsylvania or the Lower East Side, as well as our fellow Columbia students. And an additional thank you to our online participants. So let's give one more round of applause for all of our incredible speakers today. If you are a TBI survivor or know someone who is, our peer support group meets weekly and is always open. Feel free to talk to any member of Synapse that you met today to learn more, or you can go to the contact information for Synapse on the very back of your pamphlet. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful evening.